Jard had always believed that the universe had a perverse sense of humor, but he didn't fully appreciate it until he found himself wobbling on the edge of a floating marketplace orbiting a neutron star that glowed like molten sapphire. He had come in search of a cosmic map, rumored to chart every wormhole, black hole, and asteroid bar in 3 galaxies, mostly because his boss had promised a bonus if he returned with something that wasn't on fire. The bazaar was chaos incarnate. Vendors argued in 3 languages and at least 2 that weren't languages, while drones buzzed overhead delivering packages that hummed suspiciously like they were plotting mutiny. A particularly flamboyant merchant tried selling him a pet black hole in a jar, insisting it was perfectly safe for beginner astrophysicists. Jard had nodded politely while secretly calculating how long it would take for the jar to consume the entire market. It was then that he noticed her, standing on a platform that shimmered with anti-gravity lights. She looked human, at least at first glance, but her long ears, pointed delicately like sculpted obsidian, twitched whenever she shifted her gaze. Her hair floated around her shoulders as if she were underwater, and her eyes reflected constellations Jard didn't recognize. People around her gave a wide berth, murmuring in awe and fear, but she didn't seem interested in them. She was interested in him. Jard swallowed, hoping his nervous gulp didn't make a loud cosmic echo. Hello," he said, which sounded pitifully weak against the ambient drone hum of the market. A merchant behind him dropped a crate of glowing fruit and Jard jumped, tripping over the floating crate and landing on his rear. The fruit rolled past, leaving trails of sparkling stardust. The goddess tilted her head, the tips of her long ears flicking. Jard noticed she was smiling, though it was the kind of smile that could either grant a wish or vaporize someone entirely. He attempted to recover his dignity by dusting himself off, but instead, he smacked his forehead on a hovering holographic sign that blinked, "Welcome to Star Bazaar, mind your physics." "Graceful," she said, her voice melodious like the hum of a quasar in tune. "You always fall this theatrically." "I only when the universe insists," Jard said, realizing halfway through that it sounded more like a confession than a joke. She tilted her head, long ears twitching, and Jard had the sudden urge to invent a quantum excuse for why he was still alive. "You have potential," she said, stepping closer, and Jard noticed the subtle warp in space around her feet, like reality itself hesitated before obeying her presence. He tried to step back, but his foot caught on a levitating shopping basket. He spun and collided with a small robot selling nanite-infused candies. "Sorry, I'm not dangerous." "You have audacity," she corrected, and her smile widened, ears curling in amusement. Jard decided audacity was better than dangerous. Probably. "Oh look," he began, then realized he had no plan. "I'm Jard, human." Slightly clumsy, occasionally sarcastic. She raised an eyebrow and Jard cursed the lack of intergalactic etiquette books that explained how to address goddesses without accidentally insulting them. She didn't reply immediately. Instead, she waved a hand and a shimmering, translucent platform rose to meet him, halting just under his feet. "If you are going to waste the universe's attention, at least do it from a proper vantage point," she said. Jard nodded as if he'd received a doctorate in cosmic grace, though he had barely survived making it onto the platform. What are you doing here?" he asked, curiosity and panic warring inside him. "I am the arbiter of wishes," she said, voice calm enough to make a black hole reconsider swallowing light. "I grant requests, some small, some catastrophic." She paused, and Jard felt the air itself lean closer as if eavesdropping. "You human are alive in my presence, that is interesting." Jard swallowed again, trying to think of something witty, something profound, something that wouldn't get him vaporized. "Interesting is my middle name," he said, realizing halfway through that it was. She tilted her head, ears twitching in what he guessed was laughter. "Do you understand what it means to stand before me?" Yes, mostly," Jard said. He imagined the wrong answer resulting in a spontaneous neutron implosion. "I've done the research. A little, very little, mostly Wikipedia." Her laughter rang like stars exploding in slow motion, reverberating through the market. "You are bold," she said, "or recklessly foolish, perhaps both." Jard swallowed his fear and decided that, given the situation, humor might save him. "I like to think of it as advanced strategic planning." "Very human, very chaotic good." She blinked at him, the constellations in her eyes twinkling like she was both amused and intrigued. "You may request a wish," she said, voice softening, almost conspiratorial. "But know this. Wishes are not trivial, they reshape probabilities, they inconvenience galaxies, they." Jared's mouth dropped open, then snapped shut. I get it. No shoe-shrinking experiments, no accidentally creating black holes in coffee cups, got it." She tilted her head again, long ears curling, and he wondered if she could read his thoughts or worse, his sense of humor. "Make your wish," she prompted, calm as the eye of a hurricane, dangerous as a quasar's core, and utterly unreadable. Jared's mind raced. He could wish for anything, and yet every choice felt like it had the weight of collapsing stars. Teleportation, immortality, a lifetime supply of quantum chocolate. I want to walk across the universe," he said finally, "teleporting wherever I want, no ship, no fuel, no, cosmic bureaucracy." There was a pause, her ears twitched. Her eyes narrowed in a way that made him feel simultaneously brilliant and absurdly naive. "You dare such a wish?" "Yes," Jared said, trying to sound confident, "but also maybe, possibly, probably, definitely audacious." Her laughter rippled through the nebula-colored sky, a sound that made comets wobble and nearby merchants glance nervously at their stock. "Very well," she said. "We shall see if you survive your own ambition. Stand still." Before Jared could argue, a swirl of light and cosmic dust enveloped him, stretching and pulling his perception of space into impossible angles. He felt like he was spinning inside a kaleidoscope made of stars, colors, and distant music. He landed, disoriented, on a small donut-shaped asteroid that rotated lazily through space. He looked down at himself, realized he was unharmed, and immediately tripped over a jagged crystal sticking out of the asteroid. This is amazing," he said, laughing nervously, unsure whether to cry or cheer. The goddess observed from orbit, her long ears twitching in amusement. "So begins your journey, human," she said softly, and Jared realized that between absurdity, danger, and a bizarre sense of freedom, his life had officially gone cosmic. And somewhere behind him, a group of anti-gravity pirates decided that a teleporting human might make a great addition to their space jelly smuggling enterprise, unaware that he had just become the most unpredictable nuisance in the galaxy. Jared barely had time to admire the view of the donut-shaped asteroid, which spun lazily through the void like some cosmic pastry abandoned by an interstellar bakery, before he realized he was not alone. A ragtag group of anti-gravity pirates, each one looking like they had survived one too many black hole barfing contests, hovered nearby in a crooked formation of patched-up ships. One of them, a particularly lanky figure with 3 eyes and a helmet shaped like a teapot, waved a clawed hand and shouted, "Hey, you there, with the human face, that's our jelly." Jared blinked. I'm not carrying jelly," he said, trying to sound authoritative while feeling like a physics experiment gone wrong. The pirates frowned. One of them consulted a holographic tablet that blinked with the words, "Definitely not a jelly smuggler, yet suspiciously human." The 3-eyed pirate narrowed their eyes and muttered something that sounded like a cross between a curse and a grocery list. "Teleportation," Jared muttered to himself. Right, that was part of the plan, maybe. He concentrated, imagining the warm, safe interior of a space diner orbiting a gas giant, one with anti-gravity stools and cups that never spilled no matter how aggressively you gestured while talking. In an instant, he popped out of the asteroid and landed on the diner's roof, nearly knocking over a floating tray of neon-colored drinks. Inside, a waiterbot approached, tentacles folding politely. "Sir, would you like a beverage that defies thermodynamics or one that actually respects them?" One that doesn't explode," Jared said, thinking about the last time he'd attempted ordering a drink. The bot hummed a sarcastic agreement, delivering a cup that shimmered like liquid starlight. Jared took a sip and immediately burped a small supernova, which he apologized for automatically, though nobody seemed offended. Meanwhile, the goddess appeared above the diner in a shimmer of starlight, long ears twitching, watching Jared with amusement. "You are reckless," she said, her voice carrying the faint undertone of distant colliding galaxies. "Human, remember." Jared said, "Reckless is basically in my job description." She raised an eyebrow, one ear curling in what might have been a smile. "You amuse me," she said, "perhaps too much." Jared grinned nervously, nearly spilling his thermodynamically compliant drink. Mission accomplished, he said. I live to entertain gods. As he spoke, one of the pirates had tracked him to the diner using an improbably sophisticated network of quantum breadcrumbs. They entered like a parade of questionable intentions, hovering plates spinning behind them, clearly expecting Jard to surrender. He tried a casual wave. Hi, fancy seeing you here. Wanna try the, cosmic smoothie? The pirates frowned. You can't escape us forever, said the three-eyed one. We need our jelly and also revenge. Jard, panicking and realizing that casual negotiation was probably out of his skill set, teleported again, this time landing on a nearby space station shaped like a giant spiral seashell. He attempted to blend in, though it was difficult given the fact that he now glowed faintly from residual cosmic dust. He ducked behind a robotic fish tank, muttering under his breath about the unfairness of pirate schedules and the lack of teleportation etiquette classes. The goddess followed, appearing in a swirl of cosmic light. You are delightfully chaotic, she said, watching Jard wriggle behind the robotic fish tank. Do you understand the consequences of your actions? I make educated guesses, Jard said, voice muffled by the tank. Mostly guesses, sometimes accidental chaos. Her laughter filled the station, reverberating through the corridors. Perhaps we should test the limits of your audacity. Jard blinked. Oh sure, testing audacity sounds like a normal Tuesday. She touched the edge of a nearby console, and suddenly every holographic display in the station began to show exaggerated, cartoonish versions of Jard's face, making him look like a surprised alien hybrid. The pirates outside looked momentarily confused. What is that? The three-eyed one asked, shielding one eye from the dazzling projection. Jard seized the moment. I am a holographic diplomat, he said. Representing, interstellar donut rights? The pirates muttered angrily but retreated, baffled by the absurdity, giving Jard time to teleport once more, this time to a massive ringed planet orbiting a binary star. As he landed, he tripped on a crystal shard, flailing wildly across a smooth plateau. I swear, he said to himself, gravity has a personal vendetta against me. A nearby sentient rock rolled its eyes at him. Typical human, it muttered telepathically, though Jard had no idea if it was real or if he was hallucinating from cosmic stress. The goddess materialized behind him again, her long ears twitching. You survive every improbable hazard, she said, and yet you persist. Why? I like to see what happens next, Jard offered. Also, I enjoy making cosmic-scale chaos. It's a hobby. She studied him, her gaze like a telescope trained on the heart of a pulsar, and her smile widened slightly. Perhaps there is merit in your humanity. Suddenly, a local space creature, part jellyfish, part hummingbird, floated past, entangling itself in Jard's legs. A new pet? He asked, lifting it gently. The creature blinked and purred, leaving trails of luminescent sparkles behind. Jard laughed, realizing that chaos and companions were now inseparable in his life. And yet, despite the humor, the constant teleporting, and the absurdity of space pirates and telepathic rocks, a sense of tension lingered beneath the surface, like a dormant star waiting to flare. The wish had unleashed possibilities Jard did not fully understand. Every jump, every joke, every near disaster tugged at the very fabric of space. The goddess floated above, ears flicking, eyes sparkling with amusement and curiosity. You have potential, she said, voice low. Perhaps more than you know. Jard, still juggling the luminescent space pet, looked up and grinned nervously. Thanks, I hope that's good. It is fascinating, she said, and utterly unpredictable. We shall see how far you can push it. As Jard teleported again, narrowly avoiding a solar flare that had decided to detour through the planet's orbit, he realized that life had just become a cosmic game of slapstick, survival, and improbable humor. Every step or jump was uncertain, every encounter a mix of danger and ridiculousness. Somewhere in the galaxy, pirates grumbled, sentient rocks sighed, holographic projections gloated, and a goddess watched, amused, intrigued, and faintly concerned. Jard, human and hopelessly audacious, laughed, tripping once more on his own 2 feet before teleporting to the next disaster waiting just beyond the stars. Jard had by now lost count of how many improbable disasters he'd narrowly survived. From anti-gravity pirates attempting to recruit him as their chief jelly thief, to sentient rocks that seemed to judge his every step, to rogue black holes masquerading as floating fruit stalls, life had become a sequence of absurd catastrophes punctuated by bursts of laughter and panic. Yet for all the chaos, he began to notice patterns, subtle threads woven into the fabric of his madness. He could sense how the universe adjusted when he teleported, how gravitational eddies bent just enough to let him land without turning into cosmic dust, how probabilities seemed to favor him, sometimes. The goddess had been an omnipresent observer, appearing and disappearing like a glitch in reality, her long ears flicking whenever he did something daring or ridiculous. Over time, her presence shifted from intimidating to strangely comforting. Her amusement had become a quiet encouragement, her warnings less ominous and more playful, like a teacher who was tired of scolding a particularly stubborn student. It was on a luminous moon that floated in the orbit of a gas giant with rings so dense they shimmered like liquid metal that Jard realized he had grown. He was still clumsy, still prone to tripping over his own shadow, but he could feel the rhythm of teleportation in his veins, the subtle whispers of spacetime nudging him along safe paths. He no longer panicked at every cosmic anomaly, though he still made jokes at inopportune moments to soothe his nerves, and the universe seemed to forgive him more often than not. The goddess appeared above him, hovering as gracefully as ever, her long ears catching the moonlight in subtle gleams. "You have adapted," she said. "I expected fear, hesitation, failure. Instead, I find resilience, ingenuity, humor. It is remarkable." Jard scratched his head. "I call it survival with style," he said, "mostly style." She tilted her head, ears flicking. "You have learned more than I anticipated, and yet there is one final choice remaining. The wish is not merely about teleportation. It is about the consequences you carry with it. You may undo the disruptions, restore the galaxies, or continue as you are, unpredictable, perhaps indispensable." Jard thought of the pirates, the black holes, the sentient rocks, and the cosmic donuts he'd nearly flattened by accident. He thought of the laughter that had echoed across asteroid fields, the improbable friendships, and the chaos that had somehow stitched itself into his sense of self. He hesitated, then grinned. "I think I've learned something. Maybe the universe doesn't need everything fixed. Maybe it's better if a little chaos remains. But responsibly, I hope." The goddess studied him, her long ears curling in what could have been a smile. "Responsibility paired with audacity," she mused. "Interesting combination." Jard shrugged. "I'm full of surprises." He grinned sheepishly. "Mostly to myself, but apparently I amuse gods too." She laughed softly, a sound like the shifting of distant galaxies. "Very well," she said, extending a hand. "Then continue, human, be unpredictable. But know your limits and respect the threads you pull." Jard took a deep breath. He could feel the power coursing through him, the ability to traverse stars and galaxies, but he also felt a sense of purpose, a subtle guidance from the goddess that was more like mentorship than control. "Got it," he said, "chaos with guidelines, cosmic sarcasm with a safety net, perfectly human." He tested his teleportation, this time deliberately, hopping from the moon to the rings of the gas giant, then to a small asteroid where a tribe of floating creatures were hosting a peculiar dance. They greeted him cheerfully, clearly used to his random appearances. Jard laughed, joining the dance in an awkward yet joyful rhythm. Meanwhile, the goddess watched, ears twitching, eyes reflecting nebulae. She had witnessed countless beings make wishes, most trivial or catastrophic, yet few had survived long enough to understand the nuances of power, responsibility, and humor interwoven. Jard, in his clumsy, sarcastic, human way, had done more than survive. He had transformed the experience of being observed into a partnership. She had begun to care, not in the sense of attachment or dominion, but in fascination, amusement, and perhaps something resembling respect. Jard paused mid-dance, floating a few centimeters above the surface thanks to a subtle teleportation adjustment. He looked up at the goddess and grinned. "So, what now? Do we go grab a cosmic smoothie or start plotting galactic pranks?" She tilted her head, one ear flicking thoughtfully. "Perhaps both," she said, voice softening into warmth. "You will encounter challenges. You will witness chaos beyond imagination, but you are ready, and the universe seems eager for your particular brand of disruption." Jard laughed, the sound echoing across moons, asteroids, and orbiting planets. "Good to know I'm appreciated, or feared, either way I'll take it." He teleported again, effortlessly now, from one celestial body to another, leaving trails of stardust in his wake. He had learned to anticipate the small shifts in spacetime, to manipulate probabilities with intention, and most importantly, to inject humor and humanity into every moment of danger. The universe had become less of a threat and more of a playground, albeit a vast and occasionally explosive one. The goddess followed him, no longer simply observing but engaging, laughing, teasing, guiding. Together they had formed an improbable connection, one built on chaos, courage, and cosmic humor. Jard felt a sense of belonging that transcended species, planets, or even galaxies. He was no longer just a human making a reckless wish. He was a participant in the ongoing, unpredictable dance of the cosmos. Eventually, Jard paused on a quiet asteroid, looking out at a nebula that shimmered like liquid sapphire. He felt a profound satisfaction, a sense of accomplishment that was less about survival and more about growth. He had faced the unknown, stumbled, laughed, learned, and adapted. He had gained the goddess's amusement and respect, and through that, a deeper understanding of himself. The goddess hovered beside him, ears twitching softly. "You have changed," she said simply, "not merely in skill but in perspective. You have learned to balance audacity with mindfulness, chaos with responsibility." Jard nodded, smiling. "I guess that's the cosmic equivalent of growing up, sort of." She regarded